Well, for me, I think when I think of Nikkei, it means Japanese outside of Japan.
Well, Nikkei is you're Canadian with the Japanese background or ancestry, and you know, before we were called Japanese Canadian, and a lot of people don't like to be the hyphenated person. So I think Nikkei is more appropriate.
To me, it's a sort of a catch-all term that has to do with the Canadians of Japanese descent, the history that comes along with that, and the shared sense of history of the community that came along from sort of the late part of the 19th century into today.
Nikkei, basically, to me, it means personally, my personal connection. So if somebody asks me if I'm Nikkei, then I say yes. I've never been to Japan, but I do have Japanese heritage. So.
Of Japanese descent, in our terms as Japanese Canadians. That is just, I think, for us, trying to retain our heritage here in Canada. Right. And it's quite unique that the situation we had after the war, and we assimilated. We actually assimilated too quickly, and we risked losing it. So I think it's really important that Nikkei now continues to being Japanese Canadian.
Really entered my vocabulary too much. I think the definition of it is fine, or that I am a Nikkei gene, but yeah, I identify with being Japanese Canadian.
It means of Japanese ancestry or of Japanese background. Well, I guess basically that's what it means to me. But if you look at the two characters, Nikkei, the first one stands for the sun, coming from Nihon, Japan, and Kei meaning sort of the lineage of, and it has the characters for string. And so basically what it is all those who have strung out from essentially originally Japan. So that's Nikkei.
It's really very broad. Anyone who considers themselves to be Nikkei is, and as I understand it, it's anyone who has, you know, descendants from Japan.
I always remember, you know, I always thought of myself as half Japanese instead of saying, well, I'm a quarter German or a quarter Scottish. Mainly because maybe that's the most I am, but the last name being Japanese and me kind of always looking people be like, what's your nationality? What are you? You're something? And so I always went to the Japanese. And yet, in our home life, Japaneseness wasn't really something that was ever present or ever you know, was neither here nor there. It was just was. We didn't, you know, subscribe, let's say, to a lot of Japanese traditions in the home. My dad liked rice, so we had a lot of rice. So, you know, and my mother learned definitely to cook a lot of Japanese foods. So we had that influence. We didn't learn to speak Japanese in the household.